Ladies and gentlemen, when people remember Olivia Newton-John, they often think of her bright smile, her gentle voice, and the warmth she carried everywhere she went. For decades, she was known as one of the most beloved entertainers in the world. She sang songs that made people feel hopeful, she starred in films that became classics, and she built a reputation as someone who cared deeply about others. Yet behind that public image was a life that included great challenges, especially her long and very public battle with cancer. For nearly 30 years, she faced the illness with courage and honesty. She spoke openly about her treatments, her fears, and the ways she tried to stay positive. Millions of people who were fighting similar battles looked to her as a symbol of strength. But when she passed away in August 2022 at the age of 73, many questions remained about what her final weeks were really like. In the months that followed, her husband, John Easterling, slowly began sharing details about those private moments. What he described painted a picture that was both emotional and deeply personal, revealing a side of Olivia's final days that the public had never seen before. To understand those last moments, it helps to know how Olivia's story began. She was born on September 26, 1948, in Cambridge, England, into a family with an unusual and fascinating history. Her father, Brinley Newton-John, was a brilliant academic who worked as a professor and researcher. During World War II, he had quietly taken part in secret work at Bletchley Park, where experts helped break coded messages used by Nazi forces. Although he rarely spoke about it at home, that experience was part of a much larger history that shaped the family. Olivia's mother, Irene, also came from a remarkable background connected to science and survival during a difficult time in Europe. Despite these serious roots, Olivia's early childhood was not filled with dramatic stories about war or politics. Instead, it was a fairly normal upbringing that soon took a surprising turn when the family moved across the world to Australia. When Olivia was only 5 years old, her father accepted a teaching position at the University of Melbourne, and the family settled into a new life far away from England. The bright sunshine and relaxed culture of Australia became the setting for Olivia's teenage years, and it was there that her love for music began to grow. As a young girl, Olivia discovered that singing came naturally to her. She enjoyed performing in small school events and local competitions, and people quickly noticed that her voice had a soft, gentle tone that was different from many other singers. By the time she was a teenager, she had started appearing on television talent shows in Australia. One of the most important moments came when she was 15 and entered a singing contest on a program called Sing, Sing, Sing. Facing hundreds of other contestants, Olivia stood nervously on stage and performed a song called "Till You Say You'll Be Mine." The judges were impressed, and the audience responded warmly. When she won the competition, the prize included a trip to Britain. That victory may have seemed small at the time, but it planted an important idea in her mind. Perhaps music could become her future. Soon after, she began performing with friends and small musical groups, appearing in local clubs and television shows. The performances were not glamorous, and sometimes they happened in strange or uncomfortable places, but they helped her gain confidence and experience. Little by little, Olivia realized that the stage was where she felt most alive. During the 1960s, she decided to take a bold step and move to Britain in order to pursue a professional music career. The journey was not easy. Like many young artists, she faced rejection and uncertainty in the early years. Some of her first recordings failed to attract attention, and there were times when she struggled financially while trying to build a career. Yet she refused to give up. Olivia kept performing in small venues and working with musicians who believed in her talent. Slowly, the effort began to pay off. Her gentle voice and sincere style started to stand out in the music industry. By the early 1970s, she released songs that finally gained international attention, and audiences in both the United Kingdom and the United States began recognizing her name. Success arrived in waves, and before long she was receiving awards and topping music charts. Her warm personality and clear voice made her a favorite among fans who appreciated music that felt emotional and genuine. As the years passed, Olivia's career expanded beyond music into film and television. One of the biggest turning points came when she starred alongside John Travolta in the movie Grease. The film became a global sensation and introduced Olivia to a whole new generation of fans. Her role as Sandy showed a different side of her personality and proved that she could succeed on the big screen as well as in the recording studio. The movie's songs became unforgettable hits, and Olivia's fame grew even larger. In the years that followed, she continued releasing successful music, including the famous song Physical, which dominated the charts and created a major pop culture moment. To the public, it seemed as if Olivia Newton-John's life was filled with nothing but success and happiness. However, behind the scenes, another story was beginning to unfold, one that would eventually test her strength in ways she never expected. In the early 1990s, Olivia received news that would change her life. Doctors diagnosed her with breast cancer, a disease that many people fear but few expect to face personally. At first, the diagnosis was shocking and frightening. Yet Olivia chose to approach the illness with the same calm and positive attitude that had guided her career. She underwent treatment and spoke openly about what she was experiencing. Rather than hiding from the public, she decided to use her fame to help others understand the importance of medical research and early detection. Over time, she became a strong advocate for cancer awareness, raising money for hospitals and research programs. Her honesty inspired countless people who were going through similar battles. Although the illness returned more than once over the years, Olivia continued performing, recording music, and sharing her message of hope. For many fans, she became more than just a singer or actress. She became a symbol of resilience and compassion. Eventually, Olivia married John Easterling, a businessman and environmental advocate who shared her interest in natural health and spiritual ideas. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and deep affection, and friends often described them as a couple who truly supported each other. During the later years of Olivia's life, John remained by her side as she continued facing the challenges of cancer treatments and health struggles. When she passed away in August 2022 at her home in California, the world mourned the loss of a beloved star. Yet for John and the family, the loss was deeply personal. In the months after her death, he stayed mostly quiet, giving himself time to grieve. Then, gradually, he began speaking about the final days they shared together. What he revealed showed not only the strength Olivia carried until the end, but also the deep peace she felt in those last moments of her life. And the quiet months after the passing of Olivia Newton-John, the world continued to celebrate her life and career. Fans shared memories of her music, her films, and the kindness she showed to people everywhere she went. Tributes appeared on television, radio, and across the internet. Yet while millions of people remembered the bright public image they had known for decades, only a small circle of family members truly understood what Olivia's final weeks had been like. Her husband, John Easterling, had been with her every day during that time. At first, he chose not to speak publicly about those moments. Losing someone you love deeply is never easy, and John needed time to process the grief and emotions that followed her death. But as time passed, he slowly began sharing parts of the story. His words revealed a final chapter that was filled not only with physical struggle but also with surprising peace, love, and moments that he said felt almost impossible to explain. For many years, Olivia had lived with cancer returning again and again. She first revealed her diagnosis in the early 1990s, and although treatment helped for a time, the disease eventually came back in different forms over the following decades. Each time, she faced it with courage, often choosing to speak openly about the experience so that others would not feel alone in their own battles. By the time she reached her 70s, Olivia had already spent nearly 30 years learning how to live with the illness. According to John, those long years had changed the way she looked at life. Instead of feeling angry or fearful, she had developed a calm and thoughtful outlook. She believed strongly in staying positive and focusing on healing in every way possible, not only through traditional medical treatments, but also through natural methods that supported the body and mind. Some doctors questioned these choices, while others respected her determination to follow a path that felt right to her. For Olivia, the most important thing was maintaining a sense of hope and balance during a time that could easily feel overwhelming. John later explained that Olivia had always been curious about different approaches to health and healing. She believed that emotional strength, spiritual belief, and love from family could all play important roles in a person's well-being. During her final years, she spent much of her time at home, surrounded by the peaceful environment she had created. The house was filled with light, music, and the quiet presence of the people she loved most. Her daughter, Chloe Latanzi, visited often, and the family shared many long conversations about memories, gratitude, and the importance of staying connected to one another. Even as her health slowly declined, Olivia continued showing the warmth and kindness that had defined her entire life. Friends who visited were often surprised by how calm she seemed. Instead of focusing on pain or fear, she spoke about appreciation for the life she had lived and the love she had experienced. According to John Easterling, the final weeks brought moments that were both emotional and deeply meaningful. Olivia spent much of that time resting, listening to music, and talking quietly with family members. John described how she sometimes reflected on the long journey she had taken from a young girl singing in Australia to becoming an international star. Yet fame was rarely the main subject of those conversations. Instead, she talked about the people she had met along the way and the relationships that had shaped her life. She spoke about the importance of kindness, explaining that the smallest acts of compassion often create the greatest impact in the world. John said that even when she was tired or uncomfortable, she remained focused on sharing love with those around her. In many ways, the final weeks seemed to reflect the same values that had guided her throughout her entire career. One detail that John mentioned later captured the attention of many fans. While looking through photographs taken during those final days, he noticed something unusual in several images. In the pictures, faint blue lights appeared around Olivia. At first he assumed it was simply a reflection from a camera or some type of technical issue. But as he examined more photos, the same blue glow seemed to appear again and again. John did not claim to fully understand what it meant. Instead, he spoke about it in a thoughtful way, saying that the experience simply reminded him how mysterious life can sometimes be. For him, those small and unexplained details became part of the emotional memory of Olivia's last days. Whether they were caused by light reflections or something else entirely, they added a sense of wonder to a moment that was already filled with deep meaning. As the days passed, Olivia's strength gradually faded. Yet according to John, she remained emotionally present with her family until the very end. During one of their final conversations, she spoke gently with her daughter Chloe, expressing her love and pride in the woman she had become. Those words carried enormous meaning for both mother and daughter. Moments like that reminded everyone in the room that even though Olivia's life had included worldwide fame and recognition, the most important part of her story had always been family. The quiet love shared in those last conversations became memories that would stay with them forever. For John, hearing Olivia's final words was both heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time, because they showed that even in her last hours she was thinking about the people she loved most. When Olivia Newton-John passed away peacefully at home in August 2022, the world lost a performer whose music and films had touched millions of lives. But for John Easterling and the family, the loss was far more personal. The weeks that followed were filled with grief, reflection, and the difficult task of adjusting to life without her presence. Over time, however, John began to speak more openly about those final days, not to create mystery or drama, but to share the truth about the strength and peace Olivia carried until the end. His memories showed a woman who faced illness with courage, surrounded herself with love, and left the world in the same gentle spirit that had defined her entire life. For the fans who had admired her for decades, those stories offered one final reminder of why Olivia Newton-John had always been so deeply loved. As the news of the passing of Olivia Newton-John spread around the world in August 2022, millions of people paused to remember the singer, actress, and humanitarian who had touched their lives for decades. Radio stations began playing her songs again, television networks replayed scenes from her famous films, and social media filled with messages from fans who had grown up listening to her music. For many people, Olivia had always seemed like a symbol of warmth and positivity. She was the friendly voice behind beloved songs and the smiling star who had appeared in films like Grease alongside John Travolta. Yet as the public looked back on her incredible career, her family was experiencing a much more personal moment of loss. At the center of that grief was her husband, John Easterling, who had spent years standing beside her during her long battle with cancer. While the world celebrated Olivia's achievements, John was remembering the quiet, private moments they had shared in the final chapter of her life. During interviews that followed in the months after her passing, John spoke carefully and thoughtfully about the woman he loved. He often described Olivia not only as a famous performer, but as someone with a deeply compassionate heart. According to him, one of the most remarkable things about her personality was her ability to care about people in a genuine and powerful way. He sometimes referred to this quality as a kind of bandwidth to care, meaning that Olivia seemed to have endless emotional space for others. Whether she was meeting a fan, comforting a friend, or speaking with someone who was struggling with illness, she gave her full attention and kindness. This same attitude remained with her even during the difficult days when her own health was declining. John explained that Olivia never stopped thinking about other people, even when she herself was facing serious pain and uncertainty. For him, that kindness was the true measure of her character. One of the topics John later discussed was Olivia's decision-making when it came to medical treatment during her final years. Throughout her long battle with cancer, she explored many different approaches to healing. Of course, she worked with doctors and followed important medical advice, but she also believed strongly in supporting her body through natural therapies, healthy living, and emotional balance. Some medical professionals questioned certain choices she made, particularly when she began relying more heavily on alternative methods in the later stages of her illness. However, Olivia felt that these decisions were part of her personal journey. She believed that healing involved the whole person, including the mind and spirit. John supported her completely in this belief. He explained that Olivia wanted to live the remainder of her life in a way that felt authentic